Well, the first thing you want to do is master something, be known for something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once you're known for something, and then you can move on to something else that you want to do. So I believe as a business person, and like I said, I'm in the middle of a pivot, so I'm speaking from experience here, Monique. But I want to say that once you master or feel that you've mastered it and you've gone to where you need to go, if you want to add services, and it may not just be your services, you may want to hire some people to do it.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Welcome back to the Black to Business Podcast. So I love that saying that says, you have to be so good that they can't ignore you. Meaning you have to work on becoming the best, mastering and dominating your industry because you want people to know you for doing what you do. And that's exactly what today's conversation is all about. So joining me on the show today to discuss mastering the skills for business success is Chip Dizárd. So a little bit about Chip is he's a photographer who teaches creative entrepreneurs the secrets to growing their businesses. He teaches skills to thrive in business through educational videos, in-depth training, mentoring programs, consulting, and educating groups through public speaking. Chip has also mastered social media marketing, positive engagement, and he shows others how to turn inquiries into lifelong client relationships. So good. So during this episode, you're going to learn all about how to dominate your industry, the importance of not only mastering your craft, but also mastering your finances, and how to know when it's time to introduce a new service in your business, and how to make sure that in all of the things that you're managing, that you're giving a quality experience. This is such a great conversation, and I'm so excited to share this with you. So let's dive in. Chip, welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. Excited to have you here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. I am so glad you're excited and I'm so glad to have you here. So let's dive in. But before we get into today's conversation, I do want to ask you a little bit about yourself and just get my audience familiar with who we're talking to. So if you could just share a little bit about who you are, what is it that you do in your business and how you got where you are today.
Well, thanks, Monique. Well, I am Chip Dizárd, owner of Chip Dizárd Studios. I started at least full-time in 2015, but I really started a business in circa 2008, 2007, most likely. I used to be into web development. I got into via the church, and I was doing websites for the church in the early 2000s, right? So I was doing early stuff back when churches first had screens and PowerPoints. Now they don't even use PowerPoint anymore, but now almost every church you go to got TVs in the front of the pulpit and big screens, you know. This was, and when live streaming was first started, when people were like, we got live stream. So from there, I got into videography, got into production, media production, and then started getting business and just doing everything media, even though and then I formerly, before I was full-time, I was a teacher of photography and videography in Baltimore City. I'm in the Baltimore, D.C. area. And after that, it took off once I started teaching, getting more freelance work, and then just going from there. So it's been a good ride.
Love it. So now what would you say your focus is now?
Now in this year and going forward is really of mentoring, and I'm still doing photography. People know me for the wedding photography. If you Google me, you'll probably see all my wedding pictures come up because that's what I was known for, and I still am known for that. But I'm doing a pivot into other things in photography and videography. And I was doing weddings since 2010. So I feel like it's my time to move on to something else. Some of my brides and especially grooms are like, oh, why? But, you know, like everything else, you have a grand opening, you have a grand closing, and you want to leave something. It's like a job, right, Monique? You want to leave it better than you found it. So you never want to stay too long after your time. So I had a good ride. I love weddings, but I think it's time to move on. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm known for that. But now what I'm doing now, I'm mentoring, I'm training other photographers and videographers and even industry professionals. And I'm speaking a lot and mentoring.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and I'm so glad that you said that as far as like knowing when to move on, and then the fact that you're known for this particular niche and industry is so powerful. But it also brings up the point of today's conversation is the mastering the skills for business success, because you basically mastered that industry. And I want to just talk about the power of mastery. So if you could just say or talk about the importance of first mastery in business and finding your thing and doing it well. So how important is that?
Yeah, so mastery is really important because you don't want to be a jack and Jill of all trades, a master of none, right? So or a master of a few. So you have to find out what is I guess is a few things. You want to find out what you're really that you love, right? So they say you love or you really enjoy to do, right? So I enjoy weddings, right? I enjoy them. I love them. I like capturing them. But then you also got to make a living too. So you can enjoy something in a hobby, like I enjoy cooking, but I can't make a living off of it, right? So I can't make a living off it. And then it has to not only drive the finances, but you have to be good at it. You have to have people who are willing to pay for it. And that's when you know you master something. When people say, you know, there's people that can come to me and say, hey, man, you're really a good photographer. You should do this. But then sometimes some people test the waters, then they don't get the right clients. I was speaking at a conference just this weekend when I heard some people distraught for friends who always want discounts and this and that and that. And I was thinking to myself, when I heard them say in the audience, I was just sitting in the back and I was like, they don't have the right customer. They don't have the right customer. I struggle with the same thing because your friends and sometimes even your family, your church members or community members say, hey, you should do this, but they're not the ones that will ever pay you. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It's sometimes the people that know you the least that can help you the most. And I just want to make sure people know that the family members and friends mean well. But when you master something, that's when they come back around and say, wow, let me hire Monique. Let me hire Chip for this. Let me support it. And you just have to realize it. But mastery is so important because you want to make sure that you not only master it, but you master the art of the finance part of it too. That's where a lot of people get it wrong, Monique, with the finance part of it. Because you could be a master painter, but if people are not buying your art, if you don't have it in galleries, if it could just be sitting at home. There's a lot of quote unquote, especially in the creative field. So I deal with a lot of creatives, a lot of people who if even you're a musician, if you know what I mean, that's just or whatever you are, if you're a creative mind. It's hard because it's your art. It's what you do. It's what you put out. And it's hard to put a price on that sometimes.
So that's so great that you said that because it's like you said, mastering the finances. And so for you or for anyone who's listening, I'm pretty sure people are in this situation. It's like you spoke about the hobby and, doing something that you're good at. Like, how do you decide, okay, you mentioned this isn't my customer. This is something that I enjoy doing, but I need to make that money off of it. For even your personal experience, like how did you deal with that? Or some tips for people who are like, maybe I should keep going with this or do something else that's going to bring in the money. So how do you decide like what to do in that case?
Well, a lot of people are struggling right now. What I realize, especially in this current economy and inflation and price gouging and, everything going on is that unfortunately, everything has gone up. I mean, cost of goods, food has gone up, everything you do, gas, everything, right? So the first thing, you have to understand your market and your customer and who they are and where you are. And what I tell people is that, and like I told people at a recent conference I was speaking at, is that we go to these conferences, we listen to podcasts, and we hear these Instagram posts and reels and TikToks that say, charge your worth, add tax, charge your worth, up your price. But the truth is, Monique, everybody doesn't need to raise their price. Because what I mean by that is that you have to have somebody to assess where you are. There's no way that you can be coming into an industry and not knowing where you are. And just because you want to make a certain amount doesn't mean you can charge it and get it. And there's some outliers, of course, for everything. Of course, there's some outliers. But by and large, you have to do your research. You have to get your market rate. You have to know exactly where your skills are. And you only know that by asking one of your peers or mentor. That's why mentors are so important.
Right.
Because I actually sit down with photographers now and creatives, and I'll say, okay, because a mentor did this to me. He said, Chip, you're not there yet. And it was hard gospel for me to hear, but I wanted to charge a certain rate. He said, no, because I knew where he was and I wasn't at his level. So how can I be? And it wasn't about years. People think just because you've been doing something 15, 20 years, you should be a certain rate.
Right.
It's so many other factors in that. But I don't know if I went off the topic, but I just want to make sure that people understand that not only mastery in your business, but mastering actually charging and not charging and figuring out as you go. We're building this boat as we sail sometimes, especially in the entrepreneur world. But it can work out as long as you have people that, like I say, that love you, but they're not impressed by you. And that's what you want people in your life, because they'll speak truth to power. And I think that's what we need. We just need people like that. I'm very fortunate and blessed to have those types of people in my life.
Yes, I love that. I love it. And yes, that answer was perfect, drilling it in. And so one of the things you mentioned before is how you kind of started in the church with web development, and then you kind of transition into videography and production. And I want to talk about how to decide when it's time to introduce other services. For, of course, the fact that you're not just focusing on one thing, you're doing more than one thing. And you always hear this, like, do one thing, focus on one thing. So I want to know, for you, when did you decide that it was the time to introduce new services or transition, and any tips for those who are, thinking about adding something additional to their business?
Well, the first thing you want to do is master something, be known for something, right? So once you're known for something, and then you can move on to something else that you want to do. So I believe as a business person, and like I said, I'm in the middle of a pivot, so I'm speaking from experience here, Monique, but I want to say that once you master or feel that you've mastered it and you've gone to where you need to go, if you want to add services, and it may not just be your services, you may want to hire some people to do it. For instance, I started off in web development, but I didn't like web development. It just, I understood it because I just wanted to do it. But once people started doing WordPress blogs and doing all this stuff, I was like, the heck with this. I'm out of here. I don't want to do anybody's web, because I didn't enjoy it. First of all, I was doing it because the church needed a need, and I wasn't getting paid. I was volunteer. And some people saw what I did for the church and then hired me. But then I got into it. I was like, oh, no. And then once people started doing DIY web, I was like, oh, no, at all.
Right.
And this is back in the early 2000s, so I'm dating myself, right? So 20-some years ago. Now, not everybody DIYs their website. Some people, you should hire somebody. But anyway, same thing with videography. I started with doing wedding videos. And then after a while, I said, you know what? These guys are making wedding videos look like movies. Guess what? I'm pivoting to photography because I cannot keep up. You know what I mean? I knew where my gifts were and I knew where they weren't. And now when I'm pivoting out of weddings, I'm saying, well, I can do other stuff, from videos and video podcasts. You get the equipment, you do a case study, you get some people, and then you market it. You get some people, for instance, if you're making a pivot, you get some people say, hey, let me do this for you for a low cost or for free. I know people don't like doing work for free, but for your portfolio.
Right.
And if you get some high quality, some people may say, wow, and you may get some referrals that way. So do it as a test case. Don't just introduce it, put on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, say, hey, I'm now offering this, but actually show it. I think people like to see something in order than you just telling, because there's a lot of announcements out here on social media, Monique. It's a lot of announcements, but then I want people to make moves and less announcements. And once you make those moves, then you can announce that I've done that. And people don't know if it's paid or not. That's the beauty about the social media world. They don't know. I've done stuff that introduced stuff that has not been paid, but I've treated it like it was paid, but people would never know the difference.
I love that. Treated it like it was paid. And yes, Which brings me to my next question. In all of this, delivering multiple services, like how do you make sure that you still deliver a quality experience while managing multiple projects?
Yeah, this is where team comes in play. So you can only do so much. So what I've known, even if you have to outsource a team, I have virtual assistant, you have people that could do editing, because at the end of the day, you can only do so much.
Right.
Now, then, right, Monique, then some people say, well, Chip, I don't have the money to do that. I don't have that. Well, that's when you have to build it into your budget. If you have a project, let's just say that the budget is $1,000, and if you have to pay $350 to get it video edited or whatever, you have to build that into your cost. Because a lot of times when I first started, I didn't build anything to my cost with anybody else. And then there's some things, for instance, I offer, let me tell you, during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic in 2020, I lost a lot of money because there were not a lot of weddings happening. Okay.
Right.
So they were not. People canceled weddings. I actually gave thousands of dollars back in refunds because people canceled their weddings or they didn't use me and they paid me in full and I had to give everything back but their deposit. But nevertheless, I recovered because I said, I used to do this in church, live streaming. So then I wrote a blog post. Then I partnered with a wedding planner, and he gave me, in 2019, I did probably 3 live streams. In 2020 alone, I did 38 live streams. Wow. Okay. 38. So I went from 2. So think of the revenue that just produced. You just go from 2 live streams, maybe 3, to 38 in 1 year. And in 2021, I did about maybe 20 something. 2022, I don't do that many at all. But you have to understand, I was prepared for it. Now, I didn't make the money that I made doing full-blown weddings, but it sustained me in that time period. And then what I did was, when I got a live stream I couldn't do, guess what I did? I hired out people. So I was able to bless other people and still make revenue during that pandemic, when a lot of people were closing their doors. A lot of vendors were just sitting around. And, when we had 10 people at weddings, people want to see it on YouTube, on Facebook. So I was there, and I was very fortunate to get on that train early. But the key is, I knew people knew me, because you can know people. That's one thing. But people have to know you. That's a whole nother thing. People have to know that you're top of mind, Monique. Who do I call when I need this service? Oh, I'm going to call Chip. And that's how, that happened with me.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that story. Yes, I agree. I totally agree. And so, Chip, many aspiring entrepreneurs are struggling with finding out what they're good at. So do you have any tips for finding one's expert edge and what they're good at?
Yeah. What do you enjoy, right? Number one, and what do you enjoy doing, right? And then if you enjoy it, I'm not saying, and then if you enjoy it and you're halfway decent at it, because here's the thing about being good, you can always get better. Like if I like to eat, right? But I'm not, I would love to open a restaurant, but that's not in my wheelhouse. What I would be an investor in a restaurant rather than be a cook in the back or a chef in the back, right? So I'll be an investor. That's not my wheelhouse. But if I said, you know what, Monique, I need to go to culinary school to do this, and if I really enjoy cooking, I really want to put the time into it, what I'm good at, I can get better. So here's the thing. A lot of people start things, and I feel like I took longer than most to get to where I need, right? Because I was just mulling around and doing stuff and, experimenting and things like that. And that was okay. But what happens is that I want people to look at their skills and say, hey, I may not be great right now, but if I have a mentor, if I have something that I can produce, and see if it's viable, whatever that business may be. I speak to a lot of photographers that take pictures because they say they get discouraged because everybody has an Android or iPhone and they're competing and things like that. But there's only one you. There's only one Chip. There's only one Monique. There's only one you. So sometimes you get hired not only because what you're good at, it's because the experience that you provide for your clients. And if you provide quality customer service, your pictures may not be like the greatest. The people may not know. They could be average pictures, because we want everything to be amazing and great and oh my God. And yes, we do want that to happen. But at the end of the day, people just want to know and be felt and be and say, you know what, Monique or Chip, he really did me right. Yeah, my pictures are good, but that feeling, like when I give you my money, I don't want to have amazing pictures and a horrible experience.
Right.
You know, that doesn't do anything for me, because a worst referral could be like, well, the pictures are amazing, but guess what? You know, he's a piece of work to work with. And I've had people say that about other vendors. I don't know. I just think people worry about getting good so much, they forget about the customer service and the experience and the follow through with it.
And I think that's great to bring up, because also as a result of that, you bring that attention and also standing out in your market. But I think that one of the things you also mentioned is like growth and like continuously learning and getting a mentor. So I really want to drill in that. It's like, in order for you to stand out in your market, how do you recommend somebody do that? And then also touching on that, as you spoke about a little before, the importance of continuously learning. How can I be the best?
Yeah, I think that you're surrounding yourself with people. When I first started, so for instance, quick story, I wanted to do I want to be an international destination wedding photographer. But guess what? I couldn't get a job outside of my local city, let alone like out of the country. So how in the world could I do that? So I partnered with a guy. He said, Chip, I'm doing a wedding in the Bahamas. This is circa 2016. And he said, but here's the catch. You could come and you can shoot video of me behind the scenes. I had a drone back in 2016. It's one of the first drones, not a drone. And he said, bring your drone. But the catch is you got to buy your own flight. I'll give you the hotel. I'll feed you. I'll make sure everything else. And back then I was still teaching, 2016. And I was like, man, I can't afford any, that flight to Bahamas was expensive. And I was like, I can't afford that, But then I thought about it. I said, I want to get to where he is. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and put it on my credit card, invest, and I'm going to take a chance, because he invited me, even though I thought he should be paying me and paying my flight. But he flipped the script. He said, if you want to go where I am, you need to invest in yourself. And I was like, ugh. That was tough for me. Yeah. But let me tell you, I paid for my flight to Bahamas. He got my transportation, my food. He had my room and everything. I shared the room at least with him. And it wasn't the most comfortable trip. It wasn't the most relaxing where I can go on Instagram and do a slight flex or something like that. But guess what? I got business because I got the shots. And once I showed those shots and those drone shots, and I showed I was in the Bahamas, people said, oh, Chip is a destination. And then the next year I booked my first destination wedding. And ever since then, I've been going all over the world from 2017 to now, almost 4 different, from Paris to Africa to Australia to everywhere. It's not saying I'm bragging. It's just I have receipts now. If you don't have those receipts, you understand what I'm saying? And you don't have clients that trust you, people joke now when they see me. They say, Chip, where are you? Are you in the country? Where are you? Because I'm on a plane so much with frequent flyer miles. It used to be prior to COVID, every other weekend I was somewhere. It gets tiring after a while, but it was what I was doing, because I had those receipts. So I hope that answers the question, but I just want to make sure that people have to invest in themselves. And there's a price for that. I mean, and not only investing, you have to follow through, because you can put money on something, right? You can pay for a course, you can pay for mentoring, you can pay for anything. But if you pay for, especially a high ticket price, you kind of want to get your money's worth and go through with it, especially if it's something that you really want to do.
Yes. Now let's dive more into dominating your industry. So earlier you spoke about like a lot of people not knowing who their client is and how they could waste time, resources, and could also lead to like burnout. So I want to talk about some of the tips for actually finding your ideal client. What are your recommended tips on how to actually find those paying clients that are going to give you business?
A few things. Thanks a lot. And I do a whole presentation on this and when I'm speaking, but a few tips that I give people when I say finding your ideal client. First, you want to look at the clients that you have and see which ones. Like, for instance, I'm just going to give you a quick story about what I do. Okay. So I have some in the wedding industry. I have some brides and grooms that I know are ideal for me. And what I mean by that, they have They trust me, first of all. And not only they trust me, they allow me to do what I need to do to capture their day. Okay. So what I mean by that, and the finances aren't an issue. We're not going back and forth and haggling. And if people are listening to this podcast, they know you have a gut feeling. Like I had a client about a year ago that when they called me for the wedding, I knew it would be a fiasco. I just in my head, I told my assistant, I say, this is going to be a fiasco. And sure enough, guess what happened? You ever had that? Like somebody, you do business with somebody, you say, you know what?
Yes.
The way it starts is how it ends, right? It's like a relationship, right? It's like how it starts is how it ends. This is going to be a fiasco. And it sure did turn out to be that way. So you first of all but then you have a great client that you know does exactly what you need. And you can say, why can't I have more people like this? So what I say to people, when I say, why can't more people like that? Identify what they do. So for instance, I do well with brides, people in the wedding business who are on second marriages and are African-American over the age of 40. Because I've been over the age of 40. Okay. I don't do well with people who are 25 and want to slay and want to be all over the gram and being all over and want to be on Essence Magazine, even though I've been at Essence Magazine and Ebony. That's fine. I've done those, but that's just not my market anymore. And I'm okay with that. And I don't have to worry about a mother of the bride hounding me or for pictures. Usually the brides and grooms I deal with, they're paying for their own wedding. Or they're on their second wedding where they didn't have a great first wedding and they want a nice, budget conscious or just friendly second wedding. So I understand that. But that's from years of going and getting the wrong clients. So I'm eliminating the bad. I'm seeing what the age range is. And I've noticed a pattern. I say, you know what? Here are the pattern. And everybody, and then when they listen to this, they think of a client and he say, you know where they shop, you know what they do. You know what I mean? Like they like Nordstrom, but they like Nordstrom Rack. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So I know exactly where they're dialed in. And you have to think about those people who are your good clients. And then you think about the bad clients. The bad clients are the one I know for me, they call me last minute, they demanding, they want all these extras. And then as soon as I do their photo shoot, they hounded me for the photos 15 minutes afterwards. That's not it. You know what I mean? They want every little thing. So I think it comes with little ebb and flows. You're writing down the positives, you eliminate the negatives, and then you're putting out messaging and putting your personality out there that you know that will fit. Because you know what? A planner told me one time, Monique, they said, I hired you, Chip, because I knew you would get along with this client because of your personality.
Right.
She didn't say because my work was great. She said, yeah, your work is good, but I knew that you would get along with this client. Not that the client was difficult, but they knew my personality. So here's the thing, people hide behind stuff. And I know we're in an age of oversharing on social media, but a lot of times I put personal stuff up about my friendships, my relationship, because people are endeared to that. And when people are endeared to you, guess what? They say, you know what? Chip is just like me. He went to HBCU. He went to this church. He did that. He did that. So guess what? I need to hire Chip because he understands me. He gets me, or Monique gets me. So the more people can relate to you, the better that your client base will be.
I love it. That is such great advice. And Chip, have you ever had a situation where you had to fire a client?
Wow. Well, I would say fire. I would say, of course, I think we all have. I think it was more of a situation where it just wasn't a good fit, and I would give a refund back because it just didn't work out. The timing and things like that. With weddings, usually, of course, they can be very stressful, or even corporate or anything like that. I can't remember a time like recently, but I know in the past that it was one of those kind of things that where if you can't come to a meeting of the minds, if you have a contract and the contract, that's the thing. If we have a contract, and that's could be anything, right? A meeting of minds. If you know I'm going to deliver X, Y, and Z, and you're asking for more than X, Y, and Z, then there's something wrong. And if you're demanding and you just don't want to get any legal wrangling about anything, because most things can be solved outside of a court or outside of, somebody posting something on, you see sometimes people on social media say, don't use this person, or I'm going to write a bad review. And entrepreneurs get, scared out of their mind once they have a bad review. I had a bad review written about me, but it was like, okay, but that's what they thought. But I also had 55 great reviews. So yes, will people go to that one bad review on Google? Probably. But guess what? They're going to see 55 5-star reviews. So clearly, let's say, I may not be the problem. Trust me. So it's just because there's an old saying a friend used to tell me, you take you wherever you go. Sometimes it's not the boss why you have a bad job. It's you. If you keep on jumping from job to job and you complain every job or every vendor is bad, chances are it ain't the vendors. It's not the job. It's you. So people have to take a look at themselves to say, is this going to work? Let me see. Like when I had a wedding that was a fiasco, I said, I knew it wasn't me. It's like the whole relationship saying, it's not you, it's me, Right. That's what it is. I'm out. So it's one of those kind of things you have to realize and see where you are and see if there's a pattern. Because I had a bride that was complaining about every vendor. And if she's complaining about every vendor, what is she saying about me behind my back? You understand what I'm saying? It's like a friend who talks about every person. And you're like, well, daggone it. What are you saying about me when I'm not around?
Right.
No, really. You don't even trust them, do you? So you have to know people's character, first of all, shines through. And the character, here's the thing. You can do all the research in the world, right? When you got me on this podcast, you do your research, you look at people. You wouldn't bring me on this podcast if I were not credible. It's just facts. If I wouldn't provide value, right, Monique, I wouldn't be talking to you. You were like, next. You probably have looked at people and then you've done some research. You say, next person. And that's what we need to do with our clients.
Yes.
You're like, move on, next person.
That's so good. So one of the things I love that you also talk about a lot is how to turn inquiries into lifelong relationships. So please give my audience some insights on how they can do the same and some tips on retaining clients.
Yeah, I think it's just real basic, Monique. We have to talk to people and treat them with respect. This is a Black to Business podcast. So we're talking to African Americans. And in a business person, as a business person, it's hard out here. It's hard just being a business owner. But we know that our people, we love them to death, but our people have expectations of excellence, okay? And if excellence is not met, I have a friend of mine who's opened a restaurant, and I was just telling him the other day, I said, listen, man, just be prepared. Somebody's going to come in your restaurant in D.C. and do a TikTok and say the food is terrible. He said, I know. I said, don't get distraught. You're going to have a lot of good reviews, but you're going to have, because you cannot control everyone's experience at that restaurant. Okay? Because there's some people that are gonna come and see these TikToks or Instagram reels and not believe them because they think they're planted, because people are at the point now they don't believe. But what I'm saying, to turn people into lifelong customers, it's all about one thing. Service is all about service. And that's one thing that I really, so you got to be a man or woman of your word, especially as an African-American owned business. My goodness. Yes. Do I drop the ball? Yes, I do. Have I dropped the ball? Oh, yes, I have. Have I been in trouble? Oh, yes, many times. But let me tell you, the bounce back is what's real. Now I have things in place to make sure that I'm organized. I do that because let me tell you, that word of mouth, I'm telling you, bad news travels so quick.
Right.
Good news. Oh my God. That's all they got to say is that, you know what? You had this guy, so-and-so, or this lady on your podcast, and, he's a fraud or he's a this. And like, really? What happened? I had a wedding planner friend who was distraught. And there's this weddings website called Wedding Wire. It's like the Amazon.com of weddings. And when people leave reviews, you know how you'll buy a $5 item on Amazon and spend 30 minutes reading the reviews for a $5 item, right? But to think of a $5,000 item, think how long people are reading reviews for a $5,000 investment or $6,000, $10,000. Nevertheless, she had a horrible review. She called me almost in tears, a good friend of mine. And I told her, I said, you know what? This is what you can do. You can admit you're wrong and say, this is what I can do, because it's a public forum that brides look at. I said, you can admit you're wrong. If you said you did something wrong, of course she would say, it's her, in the blame game. But what part do you have to play in this downfall? So when you're trying to get a lifelong client, because here's the thing, people are going to ask you. People ask me. I got 55 great reviews, but that one bad review, guess what they're going to do? Well, why did that happen? What happened 4 years ago? And she was crazy. And you don't have to say she crazy. You can just say exactly what it is and what you did to remedy it. So my thing with lifelong clients, Monique, is that it's service. You're going to have bad reviews. You understand that. But don't get bent out of shape, because if you're doing what you need to do, you know that you can combat those, especially with the good ones, and just serving people. And then for instance, I'll do a wedding, right? But now it's holiday season now. And now I got some of my former wedding people, I'm doing the holiday season. Then I'll do their baby pictures. Then I'll do their auntie's pictures. They'll do their auntie's video or the service. Unfortunately, I'm doing funerals now. You understand? So I'm doing a whole cycle of life. Now, do I want to be in the funeral business? No, of course not. But I think of it as serving people when they need me. You know what I mean? No, of course, weddings are happy, funerals are sad, but guess what? This is a business. And when you're in a business of serving, whatever I'm doing is serving them so they can reach their loved ones.
I love it. I love it. And this has been so amazing. So let's talk about the problems that you are solving. So how are you helping entrepreneurs? I know you spoke on it before a little bit, but how are you helping entrepreneurs and business owners with their business needs? And if you could just talk about your offerings and your process.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of mentoring and speaking all over the country. And what we do, we just help people just focus, right? A lot of people are focusing on the wrong thing and not knowing where they are. So it comes first with, Monique, with a mindset set shift. So we have to shift our mindset. And once we can always, so I say two things. We have a mindset shift and knowing that we can do it, because then a lot of people just confused about where they need to be. And then you can always increase your skill set. But if you don't have your mindset right, because like that old saying, our mind is a terrible thing to waste, it really is, because you can count yourself out before you even started. So once you get your mindset and then you have your skill set, and there are a lot of people teaching skills and there are a lot of people teaching mindset, but those in tandem are powerful things. So what I do and what my team and I, we try to help people not only in the skills, but in the business side of how to change. I call it lookers. And when I say lookers, I'm talking about people who scan Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media you use, TikTok, LinkedIn, lookers to bookers. So they're looking at us, right? And now we want them to book our service. Go to our website, fill out a contact form, send us an email, inquire, whatever your booking process is. Because the first thing that people do these days, as you know, Monique, what's the first thing we do? We go to Google, we go to Amazon, we go read the reviews if we're going to a restaurant. Whatever we do, I go to TikTok now before I even go to a restaurant. I was just telling my friend this the other day. I said, I'm treating TikTok like it's Google reviews.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm not even the target age for TikTok. So I'm just saying, no, legit. I go to TikTok to look at the food because I want to see that visual, because I don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff. So, and especially your black owned businesses, especially in the food industry or whatever industry you're in, we're looking. People are always looking at stuff. They're listening now. They're researching. They're sizing people up. I mean, just know that when people are looking to book you, they're sizing you up. But referrals help a lot too.
Yes.
So that referral base. I mean, I get more business. Yeah, I get business from a website. Yeah, Instagram is cool. But the people that really, really want to do business with me are those warm referrals. So I want to just encourage people to build those relationships and to keep those. And because you can have the best website in the world and you can have the best Instagram or Facebook or social media, but it could be crickets because your referral base. I was in an elevator one time at a conference years ago with a lady. I never forget. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was doing a presentation on Instagram advertising. And I got an elevator, and she was a fellow speaker. We were just going up the long floor. She said, "Oh, what was your topic?" And I said, "Oh, I'm talking about Instagram ads." And she looked at me. She said, "Oh, I don't need to do ads at all." I looked at her like, "Are you crazy? You don't need to do ads?" But this was years ago, right? And I looked at her like she was like, like whatever. I was like, "Whatever, lady." And then she said, oh, my referral base is good. So you know what I did? I got her name and I looked at her website and I looked at her stuff. When I saw her stuff and I saw, at least online, I saw the testimonials, I said, I see. I said, she's the outlier. The mere mortals like me, I needed to do ads. Now, do I run ads? As much I do, but not as much as I used to. But remember, we're different stages. So I was a little irritated because I'm over here teaching about that. And she kind of brushed me off like, I don't need you.
I don't need your ads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I was like, lady, McDonald's still run ads and they're $1 billion company. What are you talking about? But then I thought about it. I was like, well, hey, I go to Louis Vuitton. I never see no Louis Vuitton ads, really. I go to Gucci. I see Gucci ads. I don't really see no TV ads for that. You see some sponsor stuff, but it just depends where you are. And if your referral base is that strong, hey. But most people are not like that. She's an outlier.
That is
a little bit, but that was just a thing that kind of I still remember that conversation in the elevator. Especially when you go to conferences, you've been to conferences before, right, Monique? And you see speakers, you see people, and sometimes speakers do this little, light flex, and oh, I'm this and I'm that. Okay, you don't need a flex. Just tell me who you are, be nice, and then your work or your stuff will show up. But you don't need to, like looking down on me or anything like that. But yeah.
But she did make you go look. Like that was a little
immediately. Yeah. But you would do the same thing. I'm quite sure. If she said the same thing, he was like, what's your Instagram again? What's your website?
Right.
And and I was on my phone like as soon as she left the elevator. And I was like, oh, because let's be honest, you make judgments based on that. If you don't make judgments based on that, like I said before, your people reached out to me and said, hey, Chip seems credible. So you got to have people that's going to provide value. So if I don't provide value, why am I even around? Yes. At least on not only this podcast, or if I'm not in business, what am I doing? I might as well just not be an entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with not being an entrepreneur at all. I worked for somebody for years and I loved it. Actually, I love my teaching job. The only reason I left is because my mentor kind of pushed me to go. So I wasn't one of those kind of people like, I hate my job. I want to quit. I want to be an entrepreneur. I had no desire to be, actually. I was quite fine doing side work. I was quite fine. But now I wouldn't trade this for anything.
Yes. But I'm so glad that you mentioned that story, because one of the things that really stood out to me also that you said is like we're at different stages or just different businesses and the outlier, because I think that people see certain things and they're like, okay, well, let me try to do this. And they spend their time trying to, okay, let me not use ads, and it doesn't work for them. But like you said, the outlier. So it's understanding that your circumstances, your situation might be different and you might reach success in a different way.
That's so true. I feel that and if we don't know where we are, that's the thing. You got to have people around you. It's so important to have somebody, honestly. I'm not talking about a friend, because your friends will hype you up. They're like, girl, you are here. You are here. You the bomb. Of course, they're supposed to say that. They're supposed to say that. But I'm talking about people who don't know you as well, not necessarily paying you, but at least to have somebody, like I said, who can just speak truth to power and tell you, hey, this ain't it, or give you a critique. And that's one thing I love about my industry, is that I can think I'm the best at something, but I go through and I can get a photo critique. I can get my business critiqued. And you have to, in order to be a teacher, a leader, you have to be a follower. You have to be teachable. And I think that's where we have to be, always a student first, right? I always, from my teaching days, I always learned that I used to hate sending these things called professional development, because I used to think they were a waste of time. But the more and more I thought about it, one of my best teaching experiences was from my teacher mentors that did these professional developments. And they showed me this thing called scope and sequence. And if anybody listens who's in education, they know exactly what I'm talking about. They know that things has a scope of work when you're teaching, and then it has a sequence. So I'm always talking in bullet points. And okay, here's point number 1. Here's point number 2. Here's point number 3. But I learned that because I actually listened. And I didn't know anything about that before I was a teacher. I had no clue. I never wanted to be a teacher, actually. Only got into teaching because I got laid off from the district office and I needed a job. So I didn't even want to be a teacher. Like, I didn't want to do any of this stuff. But I'm fortunate that when I fall into something, I do it with excellence. And that's what we need to do. do it excellent. And don't just say it, have other people say it. And you have receipts, because if you don't have receipts, it's nothing. Because everybody says they're the bomb. But if you say I'm the bomb, Monique, it goes a lot faster than if I say I'm the bomb. If my clients say I'm the bomb, if my Amazon reviews say I'm good, you know, I know that's worth giving.
Yes. Well, Chip, one of the things you also mentioned before is that you've had your fair share of mistakes that you've made in your journey, but the bounce back is so real. So let's talk about some of your favorite tools or resources that you have used that have helped you, and any recommendations that you can give to my audience.
Yeah. So tools I use, at least for the business side, I use, two tools I use. Is for invoicing, I use a system called Honeybook. It's for creatives. I like that. And another invoicing system I use called 17 Hats, of course, QuickBooks. But I like to also use, I'm big on the Dropbox and using those tools, any digital tools that help me. Of course, Google Mail, a calendar, just making sure that you have either an assistant or a virtual assistant, whatever you can afford. If you don't have an assistant, to just make sure that you can have somebody to do the stuff that you need to do. One of the things that I know, I love to do this thing called time blocking. So, like, for instance, after I get off the podcast, I will block an hour or 2 hours during the day, because it can be hard. You could just be answering your phone all day, or just on email. Then you can get easily distraction. And I block like an hour or at least 45 minutes at a time, and I can do a task, and then I can take a 15-minute break and do another 25 to 45 minutes. That's just me. One thing about the education has taught me when I was teaching, Monique, is that what I liked about it is that when that bell rang, we knew the class was over. Yes. So we knew that it's 10 minutes left in that class, and boom. And that's how I have to do it when I'm working from home. If you're working from home, and I know a lot of people work from home, and a lot of people stay on Instagram or stay on Facebook or TikTok scrolling. Don't get caught up in that. What I do for that, I just have a very balanced thing. I have favorites on Instagram that people I see. I make sure I favorite them. Or on Facebook. And if I don't favorite them, I just hit mute or snooze, because I don't have time to read every comment, reply to every DM. You know, so some of this stuff is not about a tool. Some of it is called basic self-control, especially if you don't have the time to do a lot of stuff. And then making sure your meetings and your Zooms are just in accordance with what you need to do. I mean, I don't take a lot of in-person meetings, but if I do, like I took one for Corporate Glide last week, it was, and you know, think about these in-person meetings now. If you go to in-person meetings, especially in the age of COVID, you got to drive there. Then if it's us, and no less, I don't know where people live, but I live in the DC area. Everywhere is 30, 45 minutes easily. It don't matter. And then parking, you got to hunt around for a parking garage somewhere in the city. Make sure you don't get a ticket. By all that time, you have a 10 o'clock meeting. It's daggone near 1 p.m. by the time you get home, and you're tired just for that one meeting.
Yes.
in person. So it's really about time blocking and having control over your calendar and doing that. But I like some of the digital tools. Of course, I use some photography tools. I won't get into it. But also some other tools I use for more advanced things, for video streaming and things like that. But I think whatever it is has to serve you, and don't just buy tools because they're on sale. Now, a lot of stuff is coming up on Black Friday on sale.
Yes.
A lot of tools. A lot of people be offering stuff. A lot of people will have stuff just to have it because it's on sale, not because they use it. So I identify every year what I need on Black Friday. I don't care if it's a technical equipment. Like, I have my list. I have some stuff because I know it goes on sale every year. And I have my coins together because I know I want to make that purchase. Or if you're on the other side and you're selling something on Black Friday, make sure it's a value, whether it's a course, whether it's something, because Black Friday or Cyber Saturday or Small Business Saturday and Cyber Monday is a big deal. It's coming up sooner than later, at least at the time of this recording.
Yep. Yes. And Chip, what advice would you give to someone in their first year of business?
I would give them to keep going on. What I mean by that is that you have to find out where your niche is. You won't find it out, right? You're going to keep doing the work. All right. So you have to keep doing the work. And I think that when you first start out, you're not really that good. So what I want to say is that your work is better than your taste. Like I go back to cooking analogy. I like to eat, but I'm not a great cook. I'm learning to be a better cook. But so what I did, I invested in this thing called Home Chef. They give you recipes. They give you all the ingredients. So I'm learning how to cook for myself all over again because I enjoy it. Right. But I got to keep cooking to get better. I can't just all of a sudden become a great cook and give you Thanksgiving meal and it'll be good. No, I have to keep on working at it. So same thing about first year entrepreneur. My taste, like I love a good plated meal, but my meals, my macaroni and cheese don't look like that. And the daggone sure don't taste like that, right? So I wanted to taste good. My sweet potatoes don't taste that great. So I'm getting better with it because I keep on making sweet potatoes. So I'm keep on making them. I'm testing my friends. They say it's good because let me tell you something. Black people will tell you if your sweet potatoes and potato salad are not good. Let's be clear. If I give you some potato salad right now, Monique, you will tell me if it's good. Right?
Yes, I would tell you. I would
it's bad. Exactly. So the same thing about your entrepreneur journey is that you know that when you first start out, it's not going to be that good. But to get better, you got to do a volume of work and keep doing it. Put yourself on a deadline. For instance, like I put myself on a deadline. I'm going to cook 3 meals this week. Okay. And I'm going to give them to 3 friends. I want them to taste it if I'm trying to be a chef or whatever. You know? So I got 3 meals I'm cooking. And then I'm going to say, hey, are these good? And this is something I actually do. I've done for myself. Just because cooking is my hobby. And I'm not trying to be a chef, just for the record. I'm not. I just like doing it because it's fun.
Yes.
Right?
I like that.
But I give it to my friend. I say, hey, friend, what do you think about this? What do you think about this salmon? You know, what do you think about this honey glazed salmon? Sounds good, right? And she's like, it's a little bit, you get a little bit chewy, need this, need that. Same thing with entrepreneurship. Keep doing it. Keep doing the work. Don't give up if you're not that good. But the more that you do it, the better. And with feedback, the better you should become. Okay? Take classes, get mentors, but keep doing the work. I just want to encourage people to do that.
Yes. And finally, Chip, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
It means everything. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. We work for everything we have. I was in San Francisco. I'll never forget the story. I was in San Francisco in an Uber with a speaker one time. We were going to an speaking engagement right before COVID. She said, Chip, I know that I get things because who I am and my access. I was like, well, I almost told the Uber driver to pull over. I fell out the car when she said that. But she was so real to me. And of course, she was white woman. And she's helped me. And she knew that she got stuff that she probably didn't really deserve because who she knows or who she is. So what happens being Black and in business is not only an honor. I wouldn't have it any other way. There's sometimes that you have to make connections a lot of times because you want your name in rooms that you have not even walked in. And that's what this lady's done for me with my speaking career, with other things. I didn't ask her. Now, I've asked my friends to refer me sometimes. I ask my friends, but like I said, sometimes the people that know you the least can help you the most, whether they're Black, whether they're white, whether they're Hispanic, whatever they are. But being Black in business, especially as a Black man, because let me tell you something, sisters are killing it. You all are killing it. When I say that, and I say this proudly, my business would not be where I am. I would not have a successful business if it were not for Black women. That's just facts. That is just, I would be out on the street right now. Well, not for sisters, for brides, to women, to Black women who are bosses in their own right, pouring into us. And almost every brother on the sound of my voice who's an entrepreneur should admit that as well. Heck, we wouldn't even have a president of the United States if it wasn't for Black women. So you all are killing it in every aspect of it. I just want brothers to come up to par and to get to that level. So I just want our brothers to come up to say, hey, listen, the sisters are killing it. It's time for us to step up. It's time for us to take our rightful place as kings. We support our sisters, but y'all need some help. Y'all been doing it so much and so long alone. We do. Y'all need help.
Yes.
Y'all need brothers. So I'm here to help the brothers, not only in the business side, but on the personal side, because we got to do better. We got to treat y'all better. We got to do something. That's a whole nother podcast. But we got to do stuff.
I'm like, go into it, but I get it. That's a word.
Yeah, because think about it. You all, I know I wouldn't be where I want if it was not for a Black woman. From my mother to my aunties, and I love my father. God rest his soul. He poured into me, but I know I wouldn't be where I am if it was not for Black women. And I will say that to the day I die, and my business and my life, because I see what you all have done for brother. So as a father, I have 3 young girls. Okay, I have 3 girls, and I want them to see that father did everything in that portion to work and to be a man of integrity, not a man out hanging on the streets, hanging out late at night, doing everything. But they say, hey, my daddy worked for everything he got, and I'm proud of my father. That's the best thing as a Black man a woman can say about their daddy, because I know that's what I said about my father. My sister says the same thing about my father when he was alive. He never let our lights go out. He never had this. He did what he needed to do with my mother to make sure until his dying breath that he provided for our family. And at the end of the day, being Black, we got to provide for our families. And we have to do it with excellence. And even if you're single, whatever you are, you need to provide. And not only provide that, give other people opportunities as well by hiring Black people. And that's why I'm so proud to have an all-Black team. I'm hired prior to have like a staff that just that's able, from different areas. And I'm just very proud of that. If you see my team, it reflects that. And I used to be ashamed sometimes, honestly, Monique, about having a Black team, because I'm like, oh boy, if we come up, what do they think about me? But we went to a conference a couple weeks ago, last month in Washington, D.C., with 4 Black men and 1 Black woman. And we walked in there like we were the Avengers. We didn't care.
I love
this conference. We really did. And at first I was like, wow. And this is what Black excellence is. Yes. It's not only talking about it, but it's about doing it. And guess what? Those white folks saw us in there in that conference. They were like, whoa. And they love it because they like that diversity. That's a whole nother podcast too, but diversity is a buzzword these days, and inclusion. And we want to be diverse, and we want to check those boxes, and we want to do that. But I don't want to just get hired because I'm Black. I want to get hired because I'm excellent.
Love it. Oh, that's such a beautiful.
Excellence is not an accident.
Oh, love it. I might have to quote that one. That is a beautiful message. And I'm so glad that, you spoke life into our community, into Black women, into Black men. So I love it. And such a powerful message. Chip, this has been so amazing. And I thank you so much again for pouring into my audience. People are going to want to know, how can they find you? How can they support you? And how can they connect with you? So please do share.
Sure. On my website is Chip Dizard, Dizard.com. And you can find everything about me there, or Instagram at Chip Dizard. Just search me. You can find wedding work if you're interested in that. Hurry up, because I'm closing that business soon. So if you're a bride, you better get me soon, because 2023, it ain't going to happen. Beyond. But I will refer you. But anyway, ChipDizard.com, at Chip Dizard. Follow me. And I'll be glad to say that you found me on this lovely podcast, and I will respond to all your messages. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much, Chip, again, for being on the show. We appreciate you, and just keep pushing the culture forward. So thank you again for being on the Black to Business podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much.
Wasn't that so amazing? Such a fun conversation. And I love that Chip spoke about how he became known for something, and then he decided it was time to transition into something new. And I also learned how transparent he was, speaking about how imperfect his journey was, but stating that the bounce back was so real. He knew he had to get some systems in place, and I'm so glad he shared with you exactly how he did that. But the overall thing I want you to walk away with is that you really have to be so good that people can't ignore you. Your work, your reputation will speak for itself, and this is what will allow you to grow, to become the master in your industry. So continue to work on becoming the best, because again, we need you. The Black community needs you. Your business matters. So thank you so much for listening, and be sure to check out the resources mentioned by visiting blacktobusiness.com. Chat with you next week, same time, same place.